I'm a guy, 100%. I put on a dress and wig as a form of gender expression through art. I identify completely as male and I use he, him pronouns.
Drag is just a type of gender performance and expression. It has nothing to do with how you identify. Anyone can do it. There is a common idea amongst trans men that doing drag is contrary to our masculine identity, but the reality is doing drag doesn't make you any less of a man. The reason for this stems from a cisnormative misconception that doing drag means you want to be the gender which you are dressing up as. While drag did originally start in the African American trans feminine community in New York in the early 1900s, it has evolved over time. Now, there's a good deal of people doing drag who are cisgender men, most of whom identify as male and have no desire to transition. Yes, there are a large number of drag queens who are also trans women, but doing drag doesn't automatically make you a trans woman. For me, I'm a very masculine guy. Yes, I'm trans, but I'm still very masculine. I'm a jock. I played baseball in high school. I fully identify as male. I very much bought into the idea that if I did drag, I would be considered less masculine, less of a man. That's just not true. All it means is that I'm a man in a dress. When I did drag, there were multiple people from my past who asked if I was going back. For trans people, this is a common struggle when we try to express gender in ways that differ from the norm. If a trans man wears a skirt or a dress, there's a good chance people will ask him if he's going to detransition. I think that this is something that originally deterred me away from doing drag and exploring the way that I express gender. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that what someone wears, how they present themselves to the world, doesn't necessarily have to match their gender identity.
People often assume that someone's gender identity and gender expression go hand in hand, but what most people don't realize is that they're actually completely separate.
Someone's gender identity has to do with their innermost concept of themselves as male, female, a blend of both, or even neither.
Gender identity has nothing to do with the sex assigned at birth, which is purely biological, and everything to do with how individuals perceive themselves. One's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. Some examples of gender identities include man, woman, female to male transgender man, male to female transgender woman, gender non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, agender, etc. Again, these are not the only ways people can identify. These are just a few examples. Contrastly, someone's gender expression is how they present themselves to the world. Keep in mind, someone may express their gender differently from how they identify, and that's okay. Try not to assume someone's gender identity by the way they look. Instead, you can ask someone about their pronoun preference. You can use they and them, contrary to what you may think, it is actually grammatically correct. Regardless of how someone identifies, gender can be expressed in many different ways. Society has certain expectations for men and for women. Gender is something that was socially constructed, and not everybody falls under the certain connotations that each gender represents. For example, women have certain expectations of them that have been around since the beginning of time, it seems. Women only have been able to vote since 1920, and there has never been a woman president. Equal pay does not exist between men and women, and has barely changed since 1963 when Kennedy employed the Equal Pay Act. Unfortunately, it is still a well-known fact that women don't get compensated as much as men. This leaves us wondering why it is fair to discriminate just by gender. Women are not less intellectual or less capable of doing things than men.
So, in conclusion, just like how someone's sex assigned at birth and their gender identity may be different, someone's gender identity and the way they choose to express their gender don't necessarily have to match. Doesn't make them weird, just makes them human.